Welcome to another episode of Off the Menu. I'm Vincent Franchini from Tumblr House, here with the preeminent Charles Coulombe.
Preeminent? Wow, I like that. It's better than post-eminent. That would mean I'm already a has-been.
Yeah, it's much better than post-eminent.
Oh, okay. Has-been status could still be on its way.
Well, at least with has-been status, you
You
were a person. It's not like I could have been a contender. You don't want to be Marlon Brando on the waterfront.
Actually, I wouldn't want to be Marlon Brando anywhere, anytime. But all right, sure. You bet. All right, that's fine. I'm preeminent rather than post-eminent. I feel better now.
What's new?
Oh, what's new? What's new? Well, several marvelous and amazing, astonishing, astounding things have occurred. I mean, I'm so excited I can barely sit straight, but I will. For starters, are you ready for this? You may not be.
Yes.
This day, this week that we're facing, is the last week in Eastertide. Ascension Thursday is coming up. 40 days since Easter.
Gosh, already?
Yeah. Rushes along. That's part of your encroaching middle age. These things go by so quickly. So I'm pretty excited about that. I love Ascension Day. I love Pentecost very much. But having said all of that, there's something else going on. You may have noticed the food at the commissariat wasn't much good today.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, you know why?
Why?
They broke the strike.
Oh, well.
Yep, back to business as normal. However, the good news is that because we're actually doing this on a Monday, the fish that would have been mackerel by Friday was what?
No, okay.
It was tilapia today. As you know, it changes identity as the week goes further on.
Gross.
Do you hear him? Gross?
I don't want to eat mackerel.
Then eat the fish on Monday.
Okay. But I gotta eat Friday, too.
Well, then you could have mackerel.
Okay.
Let's just say the fish becomes darker and stronger with every day.
Yeah. Okay. Well, speaking of the company, I have to clear something up.
Okay.
There's rumors going around the company that there's nepotism in the company, that particularly relating to me.
Nepotism.
That just because my brother is the president and CEO of Tumblr House, that's the only reason that I'm a junior executive.
Well, that's not true.
It's not true. Our policy has always been to promote from within.
Yeah.
And I've done my time.
Yeah.
The mailroom.
I remember.
Those are some of the three hardest weeks of my entire life.
Yeah, I know. You were really upset all during it. It was terrible. In fact, you were the only guy in the mailroom with access to the upper floors during that time. I remember you had to go console yourself at the executive bar. But I do agree with you. I think that you were promoted purely on your abilities.
Absolutely.
And I resent these rumors, and again, I've heard similar charges about other members of this company. Your cousin Clyde was accused of it. Your cousin Fred, your Aunt Nina, they've all been accused of nepotism. And I'm here to tell you there is no nepotism in Tumblr House. The assertion has been made that half of the top executives are Franchinis. That is not true. A lot of them are actually relatives of his mother. But anyway, what?
What? No, that's fine.
And for the rest of us, all merit. Look at me.
And this is a meritocracy.
It is indeed. Of course, a lot depends on how you define merit. But at any rate, I'm proud to be a member of this fine organization, even though I'm stuck in the commissariat and not the upper floor dining room, the executive dining room. There's a lot of difference,
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, you bet you know. So you didn't know they were on strike.
Yeah.
And you didn't care.
Well, it's just not my area. If you can't do anything.
Yeah, I know. I know that every Friday anyway. All right, well, let's see. Enough of this folderol. What do we got going on?
Okay. First question is from Tyler Mizaga. How different is the Cajun culture from the French-Canadian culture? How can we re-evangelize the Cajun areas of Louisiana?
Both good questions. Well, the answer is the differences between the French-Canadian and Cajun cultures primarily have to do with location, in the sense that they do have very similar origins, but the fact that one's in a very snowy area, the other's in a very hot area, and humid, it makes for a lot of differences. I mean, the other thing is that the Cajuns are more closely connected to the Acadians in the Maritime provinces than to the French Canadians in the St. Lawrence Valley. Their French is derived from Acadian, not from Quebecois. So there's that. A lot of their basic values, or at least the basic values the French Canadians had until the Quiet Revolution, when it became disgusting and depraved, were very similar. And the folk tales and all that were very similar, but they were adopted. I mean, the loup-garou, the werewolf, with us, prowled the northern woods, the cold and all that. In Louisiana, he prowled the bayous. So, the biggest difference was the result of climate and topography.
The whole parish thing, is that part of Cajun culture? Is that's always struck me as something unique.
Well, it is and it isn't, in the sense that in old Europe, just about every Christian country, at least Western Catholic, I don't know about the Orthodox, to be honest, but at least with the Western Catholics, the parish was the lowest level of governance.
Should we explain to the audience what we mean by parish? Because they might be thinking the church parish.
Well, yeah. In Louisiana, the counties are called parishes. And that can be kind of confusing, because you're told to go to the St. John the Baptist parish headquarters, and you'll find there's not a rectory anywhere to be seen. But they're called civil parishes in Louisiana parlance, so they want to differentiate. But in the beginning, in all Europe, in all Western Europe, in all Catholic Europe, the parish was the lowest level of ecclesiastical and civil governance. So that in each parish you had a pastor, of course, or a rector, but you had a parish council. In French, we called the chairman of the parish council the marguillier. And these guys looked after the fabric of the church. They looked after the poor people in the parish. They looked to keep the peace in the parish. So these functions were all tied up with the same thing. All right. So when first France and Spain began the settlement of southern Louisiana, every major post, every town, such as they were, had a church, was a parish. Now, this was very big. These are big stretches of territory. Because you've got to imagine we've got these settlers coming in, right? They're not all over the place. They're scattered around. So eventually, when the Americans took over, the civil and ecclesiastical parish was separated. And then they created new civil parishes. The church, of course, created a whole lot of religious parishes, so to the degree that they had nothing to do with each other, which is often the case in Western Europe, where civil and ecclesiastical parishes that also have the same origin now have very little connection, and often the boundaries are different and everything else.
I see.
So, hope that helps.
Is any comment on
re-evangelizing Louisiana? Well, yeah, live the faith, live the culture. Make sure that, for instance, Mardi Gras, make sure all through the build-up to Mardi Gras, you're talking to people, remind them about Ash Wednesday.
I was actually going to ask about the cuisine.
Well, anybody who loves Cajun food is half a Catholic. It's true.
Okay.
Just like all of us New Yorkers who do deli are half Jewish. You're halfway there. But yeah, the cuisine, the epiphany, king cake, all that kind of thing. If you use them consciously as evangelistic tools, they can help an awful lot.
We kind of had a sub-question from Matthew Gray on this. He says, what can you tell us about the Cajuns of Louisiana? What is their history, and what about the modern day?
Well, what is their history? Well, in the 1670s or so, or earlier, from Western France came settlers to the Maritimes, that's Nova Scotia in this case particularly, but New Brunswick, Prince Edward Island. These were settled though in southern Nova Scotia, and they basically farmed and fished. That's what they did. They were conquered by the English in Queen Anne's War, the War of Spanish Succession. But in return for swearing not to take up arms against the British, they were allowed to stay. But in 1755, on the eve of the French-Indian War, which was the last French-Indian War, 7 Years' War, the English decided, because they would not take an oath to the king that included repudiating transubstantiation, they decided to expel them. And so they were dumped all along the coast of the 13 colonies at intervals, gathered into ships and just dumped. This is called the dérangement in their history. Now, a number of Acadians were not caught, and some of them fled to New Brunswick and PEI and all that. Eventually, they were allowed to come home, but by that time, the British government had resettled their former lands with Yankees from New England.
Mm.
So the Acadians ended up settling in parts of Nova Scotia, New Brunswick, Prince Edward Island, where they'd never been before. Meanwhile, in Louisiana, well, as I told you, they were dropped off in packages. Eventually, these packages made their way, for the most part, either back to the Maritimes or down to Louisiana, which was under Spain. Well, as luck would have it, Spain had a lot of free property to give out, and she did. But due to the geography of the area, you soon had two cultures grow up amongst the Cajun. What they call swamp Cajuns and what they call prairie Cajuns.
Okay.
And they're exactly what you might think.
Really? Wow.
One lives in swamps and the other lives off on the prairie. One does a lot of living in the bayou, and fishing and alligatoring and all that. And the other herds cattle. They spoke a very unique kind of French. But then after World War I, 1918, the state of Louisiana decided to forbid the use of French in public schools. And so from that time to this, it's been something of a dying language. Though there have been efforts to revive it.
Okay. Next question is from Patty Fournier.
French on this deal.
Uh-huh.
Okay.
Charles, what's your opinion on Huey the Kingfish Long? What do you make of his share the wealth plan? Is it more in line with Kellogg's social teaching than FDR's New Deal? Thanks.
Well, y'all gotta understand, Huey Long, No?
A little bit.
A little bit, all right. Well, Huey Long, the Kingfish, the boss of Louisiana. They called him the Bonaparte of the bayous. And when he was governor of Louisiana, he had in every state office what was called the deduct box. See, he increased the wages of government workers in Louisiana quite a bit. But he practiced a sort of rebate with them. So they got X amount more, but they surrendered a certain amount of that raise to him directly. And then would go into the deduct box.
Wow.
And the contents of the deduct box would go directly to the gun in Louisiana.
Pretty clever.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. This is a boy who knew what he was doing. Well, his share of the wealth, every man a king thing was, shall we say, flawed. But, having said that, he was the only man who made FDR frightened. And given his willingness to say or do anything to get elected, Huey was definitely, FDR was afraid of him.
Yeah.
And he was afraid that he would run for president in 1936 and beat him. In the event, Huey was assassinated. In 1935, there was some dispute as to whether or not the man who's called as assassin really killed him. It's not the Kennedy assassination. The Share Our Wealth program survived under a man called Gerald L.K. Smith, who was very anti-Catholic. In the meantime, the federal prosecutors descended on Louisiana and told the Long family that they had a choice. They could either hold on to what they have and cut their ties to the Share Our Wealth people, or they could keep them and then suffer whatever pains or fortunes the federal judge gave them. So they decided to cut Gerald L.K. Smith loose.
Mm-hmm.
Well, him and what was left of the movement teamed up with Father Coughlin and with Dr. Townsend, who had an economic solution, the Townsend movement, which basically held that all pensioners should be given double or triple the amount of money they were given so that they could spend the country's way to prosperity. And with Father Coughlin and Dr. Townsend, Gerald L.K. Smith put together a political party called the National Union to dispute the election of 1936. It failed. But Gerald L.K. Smith soldiered on, became increasingly anti-Catholic, and with no connection to the Longs. Father Coughlin soldiered on, that is, Dr. Townsend died early. And then Father Coughlin was forced to eventually be silenced by his bishop and went into semi-retirement. Does that help?
Yeah, it helps. Incidentally, was Huey Long Catholic?
No.
Okay.
No, he was a good Bible-believing Baptist.
Ah, okay. And just for who asked this question? Mr. Fournier. We have another mini segment video on this. I think it's called Charles Coulombe and America's Big Problem. It's like 15 minutes long. I recommend that for you for more information on the Share the Wealth, because Charles talks about it at length there as well.
And Governor Huey Long.
Yeah. Okay, next question is from Rosie.
Okay.
Is the right to bear arms a God-given right?
Is anything in the Constitution God-given? I suppose that so far as firearms might be essential for your safety, for your feeding, for anything like that, sure, it's a God-given right. Because you have a right to self-defense and protection. You also have a right to be able to procure food and so on for yourself. So, if a rifle or any other handgun is absolutely essential for your survival, then of course you've got a God-given right to it. It means you probably live in New York despite the Solomon Act.
Okay.
All right.
Next question again is from Patty 48.
No.
I'm considering becoming a priest, but I've got a bit of a conundrum. Should I join a more traditional order, ICKSP, FSSP, St. John Cantius, etc., where I would be free to live out my liturgical preferences safe from the bothers of any boomer bishops? Or should I join a diocesan seminary? My fear is that if I do the latter, people will label me divisive, and I will have to fight tooth and claw to wrest the Holy Mass back from parish councils and EMHCs. However, I feel in my heart that is where reverence and orthodoxy are most needed nowadays. What do you guys think?
Well, what do you say?
What do I say?
Well, I say the guys.
I think he was being just generous with me. I mean, he wants your opinion, not mine.
Oh, nice. All right. Well, basically, a lot depends on what you can stomach, Can you stomach 4 to 8 years of... can you get through a diocesan review board that includes an ex-nun or a current nun whose job is to make sure that you're not Catholic and that you're not masculine? some people can do that and do quite well with it, but whether or not you can, you've got to figure that one out on your own. The orders you mentioned, of course, are fine, and yet you feel called to evangelize where you are. So take a stab at the diocesan process, but here's a little point I want to make to you, and that is that if you do go to the seminary, and if it looks like things are going south, do not wait to be thrown out, withdraw, because if you're thrown out, they won't take you. Whereas if you withdraw,
the other one won't take you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Whereas if you withdraw, then you can go on to one of these order seminaries.
Why won't they take you? I mean, wouldn't that be sort of almost a badge of honor for the FSSP or ICKSP if you're thrown out by the diocesan liberal one?
No, it's not a badge of honor because they still have to work within the system. And if you're expelled from a seminary, unless there are really extenuating circumstances, for whatever reason, you can't go into another.
I mean, diocesan is related to the FSSP priest?
Yes, because they belong to the same machinery. The FSSP have to work within the diocese.
Okay, what about Opus Dei?
Same.
I thought they had a personal ordinary.
They do, but nobody is going to touch you if you were thrown out of a seminary.
Wow. Okay. Even if it's for bad reasons.
Especially, because that shows up how crazy and phony the people running the system are. We can never do that. Remember that we as Catholics are not allowed ever to tell the truth about things. Because it's like sarcasm. It contains truth which is hurtful, especially to pointed-headed people.
Okay, well, wow, gosh, so you're saying join the diocesan, so
I'm saying you can if you honestly believe you have what it takes. Knock yourself out.
High risk, high reward.
Yeah.
Okay.
Otherwise, make sure you clear out before you're unable to jump to something else.
Okay. Okay. Well, good luck with that, Mr. Fournier.
Yeah, let us know.
We're praying for you. Okay, next question is from Benjamin Cruz. What is corporatism, and what is your opinion of it?
Well, corporatism basically sees the reorganization of politics and society to reflect what are called in German and some other languages corporations, i.e. Guilds. So in other words, you would not go to the state assembly or to Congress as a congressman or as an assemblyman. You would be sent as a representative of the Guild of St. John. Whatever your shtick happens to be. Corporatism is a form of government, which the term has only been used since the beginning of the 20th century, wherein all the different elements of the population belong to corporations or guilds that unite everyone within that particular framework. So in other words, let's take shoes as an example, okay? You have your old-time mom-and-pop shoemakers, and some of these double as fashion designers in a sense. You have the shoe factory people, you've got the shoe delivery people, you've got the major shoe outlets. In other words, you have all these different elements that are nevertheless basically connected through shoes. So under such a setup, the shoe industry corporation would unite labor and capital, sales and production, all this stuff. And said people would members of this corporation would vote according to their corporation, would do all kinds of things along those lines. Now, the thing about it is that while it's very much influenced by what is called Catholic common good theology, for it to work, it needs a more than economic force. In other words, Pope Pius XII recommended corporatism. Hitler said he had it. Mussolini said he had it. Although Mussolini later changed his tune and said it was a sort of left-wingy thing that's very similar.
Okay.
Anyway, without that outward, backward grounding for the corporatist system, it won't work. It's got to be for something more than mere economics. The fascists did it for race, as I say, I'm sorry, for not for race, but for the Italian state. The Nazis did it for race. Everyone had their own reason. But what Pius the 12th, or Pius the 11th rather, recommended, and what the various corporatist groups attempted to carry out, was a reorganization of society along those lines, with Catholicism forming the basic glue, rather than the state or the race or anything like that. So that's what corporatism was.
How does the labor unions, AFL-CIO, how do they stack up to the guilds?
Well, they don't really. Number one, they only represent labor. Number two, there's not that much usually. Sometimes it's different, but usually there's not that much of a religious backing to them.
Yeah.
So, and they don't really look for the common good. They look purely for the good of labor.
Ah, I see. Okay. Next question is from John. I am majoring in political science and only have 1 year left in college after this.
Oh, lucky man.
After spending time with both parties and deciding that I don't like either of them, and thus not being able to fully swear allegiance to any politician, I decided not to go that route. But I do not know what I want to do now. I have recently been convinced that democracy is a joke and that monarchy is the best system of governments. Do you have any advice on what I should do with my major after graduation? P.S. I bought 2 books from Tumblr House, which I can confirm. Star Spangled Crown.
All right, good. Well, obviously this is very hard giving high school counseling. But seriously, well, I would look and see into what interests you. All right. If you're just getting like the degree around, that's great. But look into pre-law if you want to go that route. Look into there are all sorts of things that a BA of this kind in political science can do for you. But most of you've really got to hunt for them. They won't come popping out of you out of somebody's apartment in Manhattan. You've got to go out and work for it. The sad truth is that the field of politics becomes ever more restricted as more and more politicians go on to get along. One thing you might look at if you want to make changes with your energy with the poli-sci degree, especially if you went on to become a lawyer, you want to look at A, their fervor, B, their organization. Find a counter-revolutionary group that you're comfortable with, stick with it. And then also look around. There are causes, as in conservation or house preservation, things like that, that sometimes come equipped with ready-made help. Well, when you talk to them, you'll find you often enough have radically similar points of view.
Okay. Okay, our final question for today is from MJX Hansinger. Could Mr. Coulombe and Mr. Franchini talk about what they think is the best way to read a book so as to retain the most information?
Well, that's a very good question. Mortimer Adler wrote a book called How to Read a Book on that very topic, which I didn't read, so I don't know how great it is. But nevertheless, I know it exists. In my experience, the more you read, the more you can read, the faster you will read. It's like a muscle. You've got to exercise it.
It's a skill. I discovered this recently because there were various classics I read in high school,
Yeah.
And in high school, I found these things to be tedious. Actually, it was Lord of the Rings and some Hemingway books. So far, but then I revisited them this past year, and it was so much easier to read, and I was able to enjoy them so much. And I think it's just because I developed reading as a skill. It gets easier. People don't think of it as a skill, but it is.
That's right. It's not a well. I mean, you have the whole Evelyn Wood speed reading lessons and things like that. And the old joke, I got through War and Peace in 2 hours. Of course, I didn't really retain any of it.
Yeah.
I didn't look at anything in it. But no, I would say there's several things to keep in mind. One, the more you read, the more you'll be able to read, the faster you'll be able to read. Two, always look at who wrote it, where's it coming from, what's his connection history, and so on. Very, very important thing to do, that critical thinking piece.
Now, I've seen you read, and I tell you what, if you're a superhero, speed reading is one of your superpowers, because you read pretty fast.
Well,
And you retain it too, though. So you're not skipping stuff. I know you're retaining everything. For us mere mortals, see, because you and I read differently. We really do.
I've been doing it a lot longer.
I know.
I mean, I was reading before you were born.
Hey,
That's true.
that's actually true.
It's true.
Yeah, but I mean, I've recently actually not recently. I used to do it a lot more, but I went away from it. But one really good habit to do, because you're talking about retention, is take notes.
Yeah.
On what you're reading. Also, too, because if you're like me, there are various profound lines that really hit you hard, or a paragraph or an excerpt that you really want to retain. And write it down, and also and not necessarily through the Word document. Don't type it up. I actually write it up on a piece of paper, because I believe the muscle memory is stronger and there's actually science that proves this. When you write it down, that muscle memory locks in, and you can remember it that much better.
Which is a very good thing to be able to do. It's always best to have the stuff in your head rather than have to consult something you've written.
Absolutely. I did this a lot for a lot of extracurricular business books I read, and now actually I have a giant journal of notes of these books that I can revisit all the points, the important points. It's actually really cool.
See?
To be able to look back and see, like, wow, look at all this treasure chest of information. And the last thing I would recommend, because as a publisher, I like doing this, which is publish words.
Sure.
So I like writing them down too, and I actually have a giant list on Excel sheet, because I like posting them on pictures and putting them as quotes on the internet. If something really strikes you well, do it that way so you can share it with everybody, because I think we all have that impulse, like where you read something and you think, wow, this is so amazing. Everybody needs to read these words and be touched in the same way that I'm touched.
Yeah.
So I think that's another strategy that I would like that if everybody did, like share what they read. I think that's one of the reasons actually that reading isn't as popular as television, because it's harder to share.
Yeah.
You watch, I don't know, what's popular. Dare I say Game of Thrones or Walking Dead.
Yeah.
You can sit back, you can just go on the internet and talk with everybody. You can get positive social feedback, and you can share that moment. When you can't, you don't really have those rewards with a book. And I think it's a big disadvantage when it comes to books.
I think so too. And it's well, it is what it is. I mean, the sad truth of the matter, ladies and gentlemen, is that reading is going downhill.
You were telling me this too, because you browse the internet all the time, and you're looking at various government websites, and you notice a trend where they're getting simpler and simpler. Everything is.
It's all being dumbed down.
And so that's one sign. Another sign is actually, I was talking with a college student, and he said, Facebook is the old person's social media. Instagram is the new thing.
Yeah.
And that is alien to me. I don't understand how just pictures could be sufficient to.
Well, you know who communicates on MySpace?
Who communicates on MySpace?
Nobody you want to know. No, but you're absolutely right. And reading is so fundamental to everything you're going to be called upon to do in life.
But
so cultivate a pleasure in it.
and that should, I think that's going to be a part of a Catholic identity more and more. And people should be proud that they read.
Oh.
Because wow, you know stuff. And people who read are the most interesting people.
Yeah, especially because you said it, they know stuff.
So yeah, I hope, I don't know. I hope we find a way to encourage reading in our own little way, I guess you could say.
To go read a book.
Go read a book. Okay, that's it for this episode. If you like to send this man a question, you can contact us through the Tumblr House website. And remember, if it's Monday, it's off the menu.
Take care. We'll be seeing you sooner rather than later. Ciao, ciao.